Pushpin title. After 50 years, my grandparents' secret shocked us all. We thought our grandparents' 50th anniversary would be a celebration of love. Instead, it became the night that revealed a secret buried for half a century, one that shattered everything we thought we knew about family. For decades, Emily believed her grandparents' marriage was the perfect example of American love. But when a hidden letter surfaces during their golden anniversary celebration, long-buried truths come to light about forbidden love, betrayal, and choices that shaped generations. Set across small-town USA and spanning 50 years, this is a story of family, secrets, and the shocking truth that can either tear us apart or bring us closer than ever. The golden celebration, the September air in Willow Creek carried that crisp touch of autumn, gentle enough to remind everyone summer was fading, but still warm enough to keep the leaves clinging to their branches in splashes of green and gold. The town's community hall, usually reserved for school fundraisers and Sunday socials, was transformed tonight into a golden chamber of memories. White fairy lights draped across the ceiling like threads of starlight, mingling with golden balloons and framed photographs of a couple whose love story, for 50 years, had been the pride of this family. Margaret and Henry Whitmore. To me, Emily Grace Whitmore, their 27-year-old granddaughter, they weren't just grandparents. They were legends. He, the stoic, broad-shouldered man with a voice like weathered oak. She, the soft-spoken woman whose laughter always carried the fragrance of roses. Their love was what everyone in the family compared their own relationships to. If your marriage didn't look like Margaret and Henry's, it wasn't good enough, or at least, that's what my mother always said. The hall buzzed with voices and music. My cousins darted between the round tables, playing tag until their mothers scolded them. My uncles slapped each other on the back, glasses of wine raised in noisy toasts. On the far side of the room, a slideshow projected onto a white screen, rolling through black and white photographs of my grandparents on their wedding day, their early years with my mom and uncles, and countless family Christmases. Each image earned applause or laughter. My grandmother blushed each time, patting her hair as though she were still the young bride in her ivory gown. I sat at a corner table, watching, soaking it all in. There was something about anniversaries, especially a 50th, that felt bigger than birthdays or graduations. It wasn't just a celebration of two people, it was a reminder of every moment that had survived between them. Every storm, every scar, every forgiveness tucked quietly into the folds of their life. As my grandfather tapped his spoon against his glass to quiet the crowd, the room hushed instantly. He stood, still tall even at 73, his silver hair combed neatly back, his suit pressed as if he'd just walked out of a photograph from 1968. My grandmother rose beside him, her sequined gold dress shimmering in the lights. She leaned on him slightly, not because she needed to, but because she always had. "Family," he began, his voice deep and steady. 50 years ago today, I was the luckiest man alive when Margaret said yes to me." Applause thundered. Whistles rang out. My grandmother hid her smile behind her hand, cheeks flushed. He continued, "Back then, we didn't have much. Just a beat-up Ford, a one-bedroom house, and the certainty that no matter what came, we would face it together. And we did. Through the lean years, through raising children, through every trial life, through our way. Margaret, you were my anchor, my heart, my home." Her eyes shimmered as he took her hand and kissed it. Even after all these years, their gestures still had that glow of fresh love. My chest swelled with pride. This was the kind of love people wrote novels about, the kind of love I wanted someday. The family raised their glasses in unison. A toast rang out, to Margaret and Henry. The celebration carried on with music and laughter. Plates clattered, children squealed, and the wine flowed freely. I drifted between relatives, hugging cousins, listening to stories from aunts who always seemed to remember my childhood better than I did. That's when I noticed him. At first, I thought he was just another guest, an old friend of the family, maybe. He stood near the back of the hall, half hidden in the shadows, watching the festivities without partaking. His suit was dark, older in cut, and his silver hair was combed back like my grandfather's. His posture carried a quiet dignity, though his eyes held something else, something heavy, almost haunted. When our eyes met, I froze. He didn't smile. He didn't look away. He simply studied me, as though I were familiar, as though he had been waiting for me specifically. I excused myself from my cousin's chatter and walked toward the refreshment table, but he intercepted me before I could pour a drink. His movements were deliberate, calm, almost rehearsed. "You're Emily," he said, his voice low, rough with age yet strangely warm. I blinked. "Yes, do I know you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slipped something into my hand. A folded piece of paper, creased and yellowed with time. My instinct was to protest, to ask him what this was, but when I looked up, he was already gone, melted back into the crowd of guests as if he had never been there at all. The paper burned in my palm. I retreated to the coat room at the far end of the hall, my heart pounding in my ears. Slowly, I unfolded it. The handwriting was elegant, curling letters faded into the paper's veins. "My dearest Margaret, not a day has passed that I haven't thought of you. They may have stolen our chance, but they cannot steal the truth. You were mine first, and in my heart, you always will be. Forgive me for coming tonight, but I had to see you one last time." The words blurred as I read them. My chest tightened. Mine first? One last time? I folded the letter quickly, my hands trembling. The sound of laughter and music seeped faintly through the coat room door, a cruel reminder that while the world outside was celebrating love, I had just stumbled onto something that could unravel it. I pressed the letter to my chest, whispering to myself, "This can't be real. It can't mean what I think it means." But deep down, in the part of me that knew my grandmother better than anyone, I felt the first chill of truth crawling under my skin.
And it terrified me.
The letter. The music from the hall felt distant now, muffled by the coat room's thin door. I sat on a bench between racks of coats, the yellowed letter trembling in my hand. My fingers brushed over the ink again, tracing the words like they might rearrange themselves into something more innocent if I looked long enough. "My dearest Margaret, you were mine first one last time." The phrases rolled through my mind, each heavier than the last. My grandmother, the Margaret Whitmore, the woman who baked apple pies every Thanksgiving and whispered bedtime prayers with me when I was a child, had a past I couldn't reconcile with the woman I knew. I folded the letter and slipped it into my purse, clutching it like a secret weapon.
A knock startled me.
My mother's voice. "What are you doing in there?" "They're about to cut the cake." I smoothed my hair, forced a smile, and stepped out. "Just fixing my makeup." Her eyes lingered on me, suspicious, but she didn't press. We rejoined the celebration, where my grandparents stood arm in arm as the family cheered them toward the giant tiered cake glowing with golden candles. Everyone clapped, sang, toasted again. I tried to cheer, tried to smile, but my mind was trapped in that letter, circling the same questions over and over. Who wrote it? What did it mean? And why give it to me? When the cake had been cut and served, I slipped outside into the cool evening air. The community hall's porch was strung with more fairy lights, glowing softly against the night. I leaned against the wooden railing, pulling the letter back out. I read it again, slower this time. The writer's voice seemed to bleed with longing, like a man who had lived his entire life in regret. "They may have stolen our chance, but they cannot steal the truth." Stolen their chance.
Who was they?
Her parents? His society? My grandfather? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Could it be possible that my grandmother had been in love with someone else before she married Henry? That she had wanted a different life altogether? Footsteps creaked on the porch behind me. I shoved the letter into my purse, heart thudding. Cold out here, isn't it? It was my grandmother, Margaret. Her gold dress shimmered under the string lights, her silver hair pulled neatly back. She smiled, but there was a weariness in her eyes I hadn't noticed earlier. "Yes," I said softly. "Just needed some air." She joined me at the railing, her hands folded gracefully. We stood together in silence for a moment, listening to the faint sounds of laughter and clinking glasses inside. "You remind me of myself at your age," she said suddenly. "Always wandering off, always carrying secrets on my face even when I thought no one could see them. Her words cut through me. My purse felt heavy at my side. Did she know? Could she somehow sense I had the letter? I forced a laugh. Secrets? I don't have any. Her gaze lingered on me, deep and searching. Everyone has secrets, Emily. Even the happiest people. Even the people who seem to have everything figured out. The way she said it sent a chill crawling over my skin. Before I could respond, the hall door opened and my grandfather's voice boomed. There you two are. Margaret, come back inside. They want us for the dance. My grandmother smiled sweetly, the moment gone. She touched my hand. Come dance with us later, dear. Then she slipped back inside, her silhouette glowing briefly in the doorway before the door shut again. I stayed frozen, my pulse hammering. The letter in my purse seemed to burn hotter than ever. Later that night, after the party had dwindled and the guests began leaving, I drove home with my parents. They chattered happily in the front seat about how beautiful the evening had been. I stared out the window, clutching my purse in my lap. At home, I locked myself in my bedroom, sat cross-legged on the bed, and unfolded the letter yet again. I couldn't stop reading it. Each line felt like a thread pulling me deeper into a history I had never known existed. Not a day has passed that I haven't thought of you. The writer's love was desperate, aching, eternal. Whoever this man was, he had carried my grandmother in his heart for 50 years. I checked the signature at the bottom. One name, written in a steady hand. Richard. Richard. I whispered it aloud, tasting the unfamiliar syllables. I didn't know a Richard. At least, not in connection to my family.
Who was he?
Where had he been all this time? And why show up now, after 50 years, to hand me this letter? I pulled out an old photo album from my bookshelf. It was filled with family pictures I had inherited when my aunt cleaned out her attic. I flipped through page after page of smiling faces, graduations, weddings, Christmas mornings. No sign of Richard. But on one page, a faded photo of my grandmother in her 20s, sitting on a porch with two young men flanking her. My heart skipped. One of them was my grandfather, recognizable even in his youth. The other was a stranger. His eyes, though younger, carried the same haunted depth as the man I had seen at the party. Richard. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. My grandmother had once been in love with someone else. Someone who still loved her. Someone who claimed she was his first. And now, 50 years later, he had returned. I pressed the photograph and the letter together, holding them against my chest. 1,000 questions burned inside me, but one stood above the rest. What would happen to my family if the truth came out? Because if this letter was real, if Richard was who I thought he was, then everything we celebrated tonight wasn't the story of perfect love we believed. It was the story of a lie that had lasted half a century. The confrontation. Morning sunlight spilled into the kitchen, painting golden streaks across the countertop. I hadn't slept. The letter and the photo had haunted me all night, every word echoing in my mind until dawn. My parents were still asleep, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I poured myself coffee, trying to steady my hands, but my thoughts were anything but steady. The letter sat folded in my pocket, its presence like a heartbeat against my side. I had to know the truth. And there was only one person who could give it to me.
Grandma.
I drove to my grandparents' house, a white clapboard home that had stood at the end of Willow Creek Lane since before I was born. Its porch swing swayed lazily in the breeze, the same swing where my grandfather had taught me how to whistle when I was 7. Grandma answered the door in her robe, her hair pinned back, her face softened with age, but still glowing with that quiet beauty I'd always admired. "Emily," she said, surprised. "It's early." I needed to talk," I stammered. She studied me for a moment, then stepped aside. "Come in, sweetheart." Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and old books. The living room was filled with photos, graduations, weddings, babies, all lined neatly on the mantel. Each one was a testament to the family they had built. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I fumbled with my coffee cup, then finally pulled the letter from my pocket. Her eyes widened when she saw it. "Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "A man gave it to me. At the party last night. He said nothing, just handed it to me." "Grandma, who is Richard?" Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wet with sudden tears. She looked away, staring out the window as though the answer lay somewhere in the maple trees swaying outside. "Grandma?" I pressed, my voice breaking. Her silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Finally, she spoke, her words fragile. "Richard was my first love." The room seemed to tilt. My pulse quickened. "First love?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Before Henry, before everything. Richard and I grew up together. He was my neighbor, my best friend, my everything. We planned to marry, but my parents disapproved. They said he wasn't stable enough, that he couldn't give me the life Henry could. And then he was drafted. Vietnam." Her hands shook as she reached for the letter. She didn't take it, just touched it lightly, reverently, as though afraid it might crumble to dust. "I thought he was gone," she whispered. "When I met Henry, I was broken. But Henry was kind, steady. He promised me security, a future. So I said yes. And I built a life with him. A good life." "But you loved Richard," I said, my voice thick with disbelief. "I never stopped," she admitted, her eyes glistening. "Not truly. But I learned to bury it. To love Henry with all I had left. I thought Richard had moved on, that he had married someone else, had children. And then last night," her voice broke. "I didn't know he would come." My stomach twisted. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell Grandpa?" Her face crumpled. "Because some truths only cause pain, Emily. What good would it have done? Henry gave me a life I could never regret. And I gave him loyalty." "Loyalty." The word tasted bitter. "But this letter, this isn't loyalty, Grandma. It's love. You've been carrying this all along." Her eyes hardened suddenly. "Be careful, Emily. Don't judge what you can't yet understand. Life isn't as simple as choosing one person over another. It's survival. It's compromise. It's forgiveness." Before I could answer, the front door creaked open. Grandpa walked in. His boots thudded against the floor, his face lit with his usual morning cheer, until his eyes fell on the letter between us. His smile faded. "What's going on here?" he asked slowly, his voice edged with suspicion. I froze. My grandmother paled. She snatched the letter and folded it quickly, tucking it under her hand. "Nothing," she said too quickly, but Grandpa's gaze shifted to me, sharp as steel. "Emily." I swallowed hard. The weight of the secret pressed on me, suffocating. I couldn't betray my grandmother, not like this. But I couldn't lie to him either. "It's just an old letter," I said carefully. "Something from Grandma's past." His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered to Margaret, who refused to meet his gaze. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. "From Richard?" he asked quietly. The name hit me like a hammer. He knew Grandma's hands shook harder. "Henry, please." But Grandpa turned and walked out without another word, the slam of the door rattling the frames on the wall. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Grandma covered her face with her hands, sobbing softly. I sat frozen, my heart pounding, guilt and tears swirling inside me night after night. I realized the truth wasn't just a letter anymore. It was a past and foundation of everything our family was built on. Now, past hours after Grandpa was found out again. I sat at my grandmother's table, staring at my untouched coffee. Her sorrow was a sound I had never heard before, low, broken, almost childlike, frightened more than the letter itself. "Grandma," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. It isn't your fault. I should have known this day. Secrets don't stay buried." Her words sank into me like stones. The phone rang back, startling us both. She wiped her eyes and answered. After a brief, tense conversation, she hung up. "That was your grandfather," she said quietly. "He needs time."
Time.
The word felt ominous. Time could heal, or it could unravel everything that I drove home, the letter still folded in my purse, my mind circling like a storm. When I pulled into my driveway, a figure stepped out from the shadows of the oak tree that lined the yard. I froze. It was him. The man from the party, Richard. He wore the same dark suit, though the tie was loosened now, the lines on his face sharper in the daylight. His eyes, gray, weathered, heavy, locked onto mine with a recognition that unsettled me. I stepped out of the car slowly. You. Yes, he said softly, his voice like gravel smoothed by years of silence. We need to talk. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to run inside, lock the door, pretend this was all some terrible dream. But another part, stronger, braver, wanted answers. Did I cross my arms?
Who are you?
Really? He took a breath, his shoulders heavy. My name is Richard Hale. I was your grandmother's first love. The words, though I already knew them, struck me with the force of thunder. Hearing them aloud made them real in a way the letter never had. She told me. I whispered. He nodded, a flicker of pain crossing his face. I should never have given you that letter. I didn't mean to put you in the middle of this. But after 50 years, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Not when I saw her standing there, glowing beside Henry, as though the last half-century had been perfect. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw not an old man, but a young one. Desperate, angry, heartbroken. What happened between you two? I asked. He looked past me, as if seeing another time. We grew up side by side. Your grandmother and I, we had plans. Marriage, a little farm outside of town, children. But her parents disapproved. They said I was a dreamer, unreliable, that I couldn't give her the stability she deserved. When I was drafted, I thought she'd wait for me. I thought love would be enough. His eyes darkened. When I came back, she was Mrs. Henry Whitmore. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing down on me. So, you just disappeared? I tried to move on, he said bitterly. I married, had children of my own. But my wife passed years ago, and my children, they live far away. I never forgot Margaret. I told myself I'd leave her in peace. But when I heard about the anniversary, I couldn't stay away. I had to see her one last time. One last time, I echoed, the words from the letter. Yes. His gaze softened. Not to destroy her life, but to remind her that she was loved, truly, deeply, in a way that time and duty can't erase. Anger flared in me then, tangled with confusion. But don't you see what you've done? You've torn open something that was stable, something our whole family believed in. His shoulders sagged. I know, and I regret it. But Emily, sometimes the truth is kinder than the lie. Don't you deserve to know the real story of where you come from? The question cut deep. A knot formed in my stomach. Did I deserve to know? Or was ignorance kinder? Does Grandpa know? I asked. Richard hesitated. Henry knew about me. He always knew. But I don't think he ever knew how much she still carried me in her heart. World tilted again. My grandfather, stoic, proud, unshakable, had lived 50 years knowing he was second place in her heart. My chest ached at the thought. Richard stepped closer, his voice dropping. I don't want to hurt you, Emily. But there's something you should know. Margaret and I, we saw each other once. After she was already married. Briefly. Secretly. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? I whispered. He held my gaze. I'm saying there's a chance your mother isn't Henry's daughter. The ground beneath me seemed to vanish. The air thickened, my breath coming in shallow bursts. I shook my head, refusing the words. No, that can't. I don't know for certain, he admitted. But you deserve the chance to find out. The truth is in your blood. My knees weakened. I gripped the railing of the porch to steady myself. My family, my history, everything I thought I knew, suddenly felt fragile, like a mirror on the edge of shattering. Richard's voice softened. I know this is too much. But I couldn't die without giving you the choice, Margaret, and I never had the choice to know. Tears blurred my vision. Why me? Why not tell her? Why not tell my mother?
He sighed.
Because Margaret would bury it again, and your mother, she deserves peace. But you're young, strong, untainted by the lies. You can handle it. I didn't feel strong. I felt like a child standing at the edge of a storm. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw only truth, raw and unpolished. Richard stepped back, his silhouette dim in the fading light. I'll leave you with this, Emily. Secrets rot families from the inside. Sometimes tearing them open is the only way they can heal. And then, without waiting for a reply, he walked away, his figure swallowed by the dusk, leaving me trembling on the porch with nothing but the weight of a truth I wasn't ready for. Inside, the house was quiet. My purse lay on the couch, the letter still tucked inside. I pulled it out once more, staring at the name Richard at the bottom. The man from the past was no longer just a ghost. He was flesh, blood, and history, and his truth threatened to tear everything apart. For 2 days, I avoided both of my grandparents. I didn't answer Grandma's calls, and when my mom asked why I seemed distracted, I muttered excuses about work. But inside, my mind was a storm. Richard's words replayed endlessly. We saw each other once, after she was already married. That night, unable to carry the weight any longer, I drove back to my grandparents' house. Their porch light was on, casting a soft glow across the flower beds Margaret tended so lovingly. I knocked once. Twice it was Grandma who answered. Her eyes were tired, rimmed red like she hadn't slept. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in her cardigan and slippers. Emily, she breathed. I was hoping you'd come. She ushered me inside. The living room smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. Grandpa wasn't there. Only his empty armchair facing the TV, a mug still resting on the side table. Where's Grandpa? I asked, her lips pressed together. He's staying with your Uncle James for a while. He needed space. The hollow ache in my chest deepened. Grandpa had never spent a night away from her in 50 years, not even when he was hospitalized after his surgery. We sat down on the couch. She folded her hands tightly, like she was bracing herself for a storm. You've spoken to him, haven't you? She asked softly. I nodded. Richard. Her shoulders sagged. Then you already know part of the truth. But you deserve the whole of it. If I don't tell you, someone else will. I leaned forward, my throat dry. Grandma, did you love him? After you married Grandpa? Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood, walked to the mantel, and picked up a framed photograph of her and Grandpa on their wedding day. She stared at it for a long time, then returned and placed it on the coffee table between us. I loved Henry, she said at last, her voice trembling. But love isn't simple. You can love two people in different ways for different reasons. Henry was safety. He was steady, dependable. He gave me a life, a home, children. But Richard, she swallowed hard. Richard was passion.
Fire.
The kind of love that makes you feel alive even when it's impossible. Tears burned my eyes. So, you betrayed Grandpa? Her face crumpled.
Yes. Once.
I wish I could say it didn't happen, but it did. Richard came back from the war broken, angry, desperate. He found me one afternoon when Henry was working at the mill. He begged me to run away with him. I said no, but I couldn't resist the part of me that still loved him. Her voice cracked. We were together that one time, and then I told him never to come back. I chose Henry. I chose this family. I covered my mouth, my heart racing. The air felt heavy, suffocating. So, Richard was telling the truth. There's a chance. Yes, she whispered. There's a chance your mother isn't Henry's daughter. The words sliced through me. My mother, kind, warm, devoted, her entire identity could be a lie. My grandfather, who had raised her with such pride, who had walked her down the aisle at her wedding, might not even be her father. Tears spilled down my cheeks. How could you keep this from us? She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Because I couldn't destroy everything we built, she said, her voice pleading. Henry knew about Richard. He knew I'd loved him once. But he never knew about that day. I buried it so deep I almost convinced myself it hadn't happened. What good would it have done to tell him? To tell your mother? To taint every Christmas, every birthday, every smile? Her logic stung. Maybe she was right. Maybe silence had spared us pain. But now, sitting in this room with the truth burning between us, I felt betrayed in a way I couldn't describe. "Grandma," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Do you understand what this means for me? For all of us? We don't even know who we are anymore." Her tears streamed freely now. "I know, sweetheart. And I'm so sorry. But families aren't built on blood alone. They're built on love, on the choices we make every day. Henry is your grandfather, no matter what a test says." Her words, though meant to comfort, only twisted the knife deeper. Because now, there was a question inside me that wouldn't stop screaming. What if he isn't? Silence stretched between us. I could hear the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, each second like a drumbeat of judgment. Finally, I stood. "I can't just pretend this never happened. I need to know the truth." Her face paled. "Emily, please, I'll take a DNA test," I said firmly. "I have to. For Mom. For all of us." She shook her head, fear flashing in her eyes.
No.
"If you do this, you'll tear this family apart." I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. "Grandma, the family's already broken. Richard broke it by showing up. You broke it by keeping the secret. The only thing left is the truth." Her sobs filled the room as I walked to the door. I paused for a moment, my hand on the knob, aching to turn back, to hug her, to promise it would be okay. But I couldn't. Not YET. As I stepped outside into the night, the cool air stung my cheeks. I pulled the letter from my purse one last time, staring at the name at the bottom, Richard, the man who had haunted my grandmother's heart for 50 years. The man who might be my true bloodline, and the man whose presence had turned our golden family legacy into a shattered illusion. The DNA test the kit arrived in a plain white box, looking far too simple for something that could unravel generations of history. I placed it on my kitchen table, staring at it like it was a ticking bomb. All week, I debated whether to tell my mom before I went through with it. But every time I tried, the words stuck in my throat. She was already stressed with work, already dealing with Grandpa's sudden absence. If I dropped this on her now, would she hate me for it? Finally, I called my cousin Sarah. She had always been the bold one, the truth-teller of the family. If anyone would understand, it was her. When I explained everything, Richard, the letter, Grandma's confession, she didn't gasp or cry. She just sat quietly on the other end of the line, then she said, "Emily, if there's even a chance our mothers don't share the same father, we have to know. Secrets rot families from the inside out." Her calmness steadied me. By the end of the week, Sarah had ordered her own kit. We agreed to do this together on a rainy Saturday morning. We sat side by side at my kitchen table. Sarah tore open her kit with the decisiveness of someone unafraid of consequences. I, on the other hand, hesitated, my fingers trembling. "You sure about this?" I asked. She smirked. "You're the one who dragged me into it. No turning back now." We swabbed our cheeks, sealed the samples, and packaged them for mailing. Sarah placed hers in her purse, patting it like it was nothing more than a bill to be paid. But as I held mine, I felt a surge of guilt so strong it nearly knocked the breath from me. I could see Grandma's tear-stained face, hear her desperate plea. "Don't do this. You'll tear us apart." Still, I slipped the envelope into the mailbox. The clang of the metal door shutting felt final, like a gavel striking down a sentence. The weeks that followed were torture. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every night, I lay awake imagining the outcomes. Scenario 1. Richard was telling the truth. My mother was his daughter, which meant I wasn't fully a part of the family I'd always known. Scenario 2. Grandma was wrong. Maybe her fears were misplaced, and the DNA would prove Grandpa was my mother's true father all along. Scenario 3. Something in between, an answer that didn't cleanly explain anything but left us more fractured than before. I prayed for Scenario 2. The results came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work when the email arrived. "Your DNA results are ready to view." and my heart hammered so loudly I thought my coworkers could hear it. I rushed to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and pulled out my phone. Sarah had already texted me. "You ready?" Hands shaking, I typed, "Yes. Let's open together. Call me." Seconds later, her face appeared on my screen. She looked pale, her lips pressed tight. "On three," she said. I nodded. 1, 2, 3. We tapped. The screen loaded. Then the words appeared. Genetic relationship. Half cousins. I froze. Half cousins. Not full cousins. Which meant my mother and Sarah's mother didn't share the same father. The air left my lungs. Oh my God. Sarah's eyes widened. So it's true. One of our moms isn't Grandpa's. Tears blurred my vision. It's mine. It has to be mine. Grandma told me about Richard. Sarah pressed her hand to her forehead, pacing her kitchen. Emily, do you realize what this means? Our entire family tree just split in two. I nodded numbly, my whole body trembling. That night, I went to my parents' house. My mom was in the kitchen, humming softly as she chopped vegetables. The normalcy of it broke me. "Mom," I said, my voice cracking. She looked up, smiling. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I placed the printed results on the counter. Her eyes skimmed them, confusion giving way to disbelief. "What is this?" she whispered. "It means Grandpa might not be your dad." Her knife clattered to the cutting board. For a long moment, she just stared at me, her face pale. "Emily," she said slowly, her voice trembling, "tell me this is a mistake." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I wish it was. But Grandma, she told me about Richard. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Richard." She said his name like it was poison. I nodded. "I'm so sorry, Mom." She sank into a chair, her whole body shaking. "All these years, my father, my dad," she broke off, sobbing into her hands. I knelt beside her, hugging her as tightly as I could. But her body shook so violently, it felt like I was holding someone in the middle of an earthquake. The fallout was immediate. Mom confronted Grandma the next day. I wasn't there, but Sarah told me it was brutal. Screaming, tears, slammed doors. Grandpa didn't come back home. Word spread quickly through the family. Some relatives avoided us entirely. Others called me brave for finding the truth. But at night, lying awake in the silence of my apartment, I wondered if bravery was the right word. Maybe I hadn't been brave. Maybe I had been reckless, because now, the family wasn't just cracked. It was shattered. The family fractures. The days after the DNA results felt like walking through a battlefield where the smoke never cleared. Half the family pretended nothing had changed, clinging desperately to normalcy. The other half whispered behind closed doors, their conversations sharp and hushed. And in the middle of it all stood my mother, her sense of identity ripped apart like an old photograph. The first family gathering after the truth broke was at Aunt Linda's house. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday dinner, but everyone showed up, uncles, cousins, even Grandpa. Though he sat stiffly in a corner, his jaw set like stone, Grandma arrived last. The room went silent as she walked in, clutching a casserole dish like a shield. Her eyes swept over the family, pausing on my mother. For a moment, I thought Mom would ignore her. But then, to my shock, she spoke. "Sit down, Mother." Her voice was cold, clipped. The kind of voice that came from betrayal, not love. Grandma obeyed, setting the dish on the counter and lowering herself into a chair at the table. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, until Sarah, always the bold one, finally broke it. "So," she said flatly, "are we just going to pretend half of us don't share the same grandfather?" Her words cracked the room open like a fault line. Uncle James slammed his fist on the table. "This is ridiculous. Henry raised all of you. He's your father. That's the end of it." Aunt Linda's face twisted. "The DNA says otherwise, James. We can't just ignore it." My mom's voice cut through the chaos. "I grew up believing Henry was my father. Every memory I have, every bedtime story, every hug, every lesson was with him.
But now?
I don't even know who I am." Her words silenced everyone for a heartbeat. Grandpa's hands clenched on the armrest of his chair. His eyes glistened, but he said nothing. Then Grandma spoke, her voice trembling. I never meant for this to happen. I made one mistake. A mistake I regretted every day since. But Henry is your father, in every way that matters. Blood doesn't erase 50 years of love. My mom's head snapped toward her. A mistake? You call lying to me about my entire identity a mistake? You let me grow up worshipping a man who might not even be my father. Tears spilled down Grandma's cheeks. I wanted to protect you. Protect me? Mom's voice cracked. You destroyed me. The dinner ended in chaos. Raised voices, slammed doors, tears spilling like rain. That night, I sat with Sarah on her porch, both of us drained. This family will never be the same, she said quietly. I nodded. It already isn't. She hesitated, then added, There's something you should know. I saw Richard. My head whipped toward her. What? When? Yesterday. He came to my dad's hardware store. Said he wanted to explain himself. Said he never meant to cause all this pain. My heart lurched. And what did you say? I told him to leave before someone called the cops. I pressed a hand to my forehead, my thoughts spinning. Richard wasn't just a ghost from the past anymore. He was here, present, stirring the embers of a fire that had nearly consumed us. The next evening, I found him myself. He was sitting on a bench outside the library, his cane resting against his knee, his frame hunched. When he saw me approach, he straightened, his eyes searching mine. Emily, he said softly, I knew you'd come. My chest tightened. Why are you here? Haven't you caused enough damage? He sighed, running a hand over his weathered face. I didn't come to destroy anything. I came because I'm dying. The words hit me like a blow. What? Stage 4 lung cancer. Doctors give me months, maybe less. I didn't want to leave this world without trying to set things right. I swallowed hard, my anger tangling with pity. You've set off a bomb in this family. My mom doesn't even know who she is anymore. My grandparents aren't speaking. And now you want sympathy? His eyes filled with tears.
No.
I want the truth. Your grandmother was the love of my life. I lost her once to war, once to circumstance, and now forever. If your mother is my daughter, I deserve to know her before I go. My breath caught. Do you realize what you're asking? You want me to tell her to meet the man who might be her father, the man who destroyed her world. I want a chance to explain, he said quietly. To tell her she was wanted, that she came from love, not shame. I stared at him, my heart torn in two. Part of me wanted to scream at him to leave, to disappear forever. But another part, the part that had lived with the weight of Grandma's secret, wondered if maybe he was right. Maybe Mom deserved the truth, no matter how painful. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My family was fractured beyond recognition. My grandparents' golden anniversary was tarnished, my mother's heartbroken, my cousins divided. And now Richard, the man at the center of it all, was asking for one final act of forgiveness. Dawn broke. One truth settled over me like a heavy blanket. The secret wasn't done with us yet. The final confrontation. The call came on a Thursday morning. Richard was in the hospital. His condition had worsened overnight, and the doctors didn't expect him to last more than a few days. I told my mom, expecting her to refuse to go. Instead, she sat quietly at the kitchen table, her coffee cooling untouched. I should hate him, she whispered. I want to hate him. But if he's my father, she trailed off, her voice breaking. If he's my father, then I need to see him. Just once. And so we went. The hospital room was dim, the blinds half drawn. Machines hummed softly, their beep steady but fragile, like a rhythm that could end at any moment. Richard lay in the bed, his once strong frame reduced to something frail and small. His skin was pale, his breath shallow. When he saw us, his eyes filled with tears. Margaret, he whispered, though his gaze was on my mother. My mom froze at the doorway. I'm not her. I'm Claire, her daughter. He closed his eyes, pained. Of course. You look so much like her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom stepped closer, her hands trembling at her sides. You might be my father. Richard nodded weakly. I know. And I'm sorry. Sorry for the years stolen, for the silence, for the lies. I should have fought harder. But I thought. He broke off, coughing violently. I rushed forward to pour him water, holding the cup as he sipped. I thought letting her go would be mercy, he whispered hoarsely. But I never stopped loving her. And if you are mine, Claire, you were never unwanted. Tears slipped down my mother's cheeks. She sank into the chair beside his bed. Do you know what this did to me? To my family? My parents don't even look at each other anymore. Richard's eyes filled with regret. I didn't mean to break what was whole. I only wanted to leave the truth. Before I go. Grandma arrived then. I hadn't told her where we were going, but somehow she knew. She stood in the doorway, her face pale, her hands shaking. When Richard saw her, his eyes lit up, a spark of the soldier he once was. Margaret. Her lips trembled. Richard. After all these years, she walked slowly to the bed. For a moment, I thought Grandpa might follow her in, but he didn't. It was just the three of them, Margaret, Richard, and Claire, caught in a triangle of love, betrayal, and truth that had lasted half a century. I should hate you, Grandma whispered, her voice thick with emotion. For what you've done to my family. For what you've taken from us. Richard's hand trembled as he reached toward her. She didn't take it, but she didn't pull away either. I never wanted to take, he rasped. Only to love. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that carried decades of unsaid words. Finally, my mom spoke, her voice breaking the stalemate. I don't care about your regrets, she said, tears streaming down her face. I just want to know one thing. Are you my father? Richard's eyes glistened.
Yes.
I believe I am. Her sobs filled the room, raw and unrestrained. She buried her face in her hands, shaking, and then something unexpected happened. Grandma reached out, placing a trembling hand on her daughter's shoulder. It doesn't matter whose blood runs in your veins. You are mine. You are Henry's. Nothing can change that. Her words cracked something open in me. For all the lies, for all the pain, she was right. Blood had split us apart, but love had the power to stitch us back together, if we let it. Richard passed away 3 days later. The funeral was small, quiet, attended by only a few old friends and, to everyone's surprise, my mother. She stood at the edge of the grave, tears in her eyes but strength in her posture. When the casket lowered, she whispered something none of us could hear. Maybe goodbye. Maybe forgiveness. Grandpa didn't come. His absence was a wound in itself, but later that night, as we gathered at their house, he returned. He didn't speak to Grandma, not directly, but he sat in his chair, his presence saying what words couldn't. He hadn't given up completely. It would take time. Maybe years. But perhaps healing was possible. Weeks later, I sat in my apartment, looking through old photographs of family picnics, holidays, birthdays. Smiles everywhere, laughter frozen in time. We weren't the same family anymore. We never would be. But in some strange way, we were more honest now, stripped bare of illusions. I closed the photo album and whispered to myself, after 50 years, the truth nearly broke us. But maybe it also gave us a chance to rebuild, this time on solid ground.